contemplate these. And so we can take some tools from all this so we can develop our own amazing potential, which Buddha talks about being pretty incredible. So we can be a better brother. That's the plan, okay? Sangye, Chodam, Soke, Chognam, La, Jancho Badu, Dagni, Kyapsu, Chi, Dagi, Chonyen, Gifa, Sonam, Ki, Rola, Penche, Sangye, Drupa, Shog, Sangye, Chodam, Soke, Chognam, La, Jancho Badu, Dagni, Kyapsu, Chi, Dagi, Chonyen, Gifa, Sonam, Ki, Rola, Penche, Sangye, Drupa, Shog, Sangye, Chodam, Soke, Chognam, La, Jancho Badu, Dagni, Kyapsu, Chi, Dagi Chonyen Gipe Sonam Ki Drola Penche Sangi Drupasho. So I think we look into our own minds and we see everybody else, including the dogs and the rats and the mosquitoes, as well as the humans. Everybody wants things to be nice and nobody can stand problems, basically. It's very simple, you know. So maybe we should even ask the question, why in the first place, you know? Because we can see it's hard to see you always want things to be nice until they don't, until they're not. Then we notice. That's the learning in a way, you know. I mean, Buddha talks about its attachment energy, this primordial mistake in the mind, you know, that's emotional hunger, was never satisfied, always thinks there should be more, always thinks I should be better, never satisfied. It's this default energy, never satisfied. So always kind of every second, you know, wanting something more, wanting something better, wanting something, whatever. And then the moment it doesn't strongly get what it wants, or even mildly, when that doesn't get what it wants, which is when a problem comes. By definition, what we label a problem is what our attachment doesn't want. You know? It mightn't be a problem for everybody. It's always very personal. So how to deal with problems, really the best point, how to deal with problems. Because we know no matter how hard we try, no matter how desperately we don't want them, no matter how hard we try to avoid them, no matter how hard we try to set things up so that we think they won't happen, we know they come, one way or another. And you look in the lives of other people, look in the history of the world, this is how it is. So we mightn't have an analysis of why that's how it is, and certainly Buddha's got his analysis. You know, he's got a very clear view of why bad things happen and why good things happen. That's up to us whether we want that one. That's the view of karma, you know, that's his view. But not having that, even forget that. How do we deal with problems when they come? What's a practical approach? And what that means is, there's two things. There's the thing itself outside, and then there's our approach to it. So the one thing we can see, and this is really Buddha's point, the one thing we can see is that we can definitely adjust what's in the mind in order that the problem appears differently. That's really what he's saying. Because everything comes down to the mind, which is a bit shocking to us because we don't think so. We think everything comes down to everybody else, the outside world, and I'm just as a victim of this outside world. We think that. I didn't ask to get born, somebody else made me, somebody else has a plan, no one consulted me, and here I am plonked on this planet, you know, left to deal with the dramas. That's why Buddha's view is so shocking, actually, that we created the cause to have this life. We programmed our own mind in the past and set it up to come to this particular life, to this particular mother, to this particular country, in this particular body, and to have these particular experiences. I mean, they're a pretty shocking concept. Christianity doesn't say that. God made us. The philosophical materialist view doesn't say that. Mummy and daddy made us. Buddha says, no, you made yourself. A very shocking concept, actually. Very surprising. That's really a sense what Buddha's saying with the view of karma. That's his observation of how things exist. It's his natural law. As far as Buddha's concerned, it's a natural law. So I started talking about problems, now I'm talking about the causes. Really, that's helpful too. And even many people who are Buddhists, who love the Buddhist approach, like the Buddhist view, like Buddhist meditation, we don't hear much about karma, don't deal with it much. And even if we say the word, we don't go into it and can't even give a basic explanation of it. It's quite shocking. It's an unusual view. It's a surprising view. And when we do think about it, we have a completely twisted view of it. Yeah. I know when I first heard these teachings when I was in my 30s, years ago, this is the one I felt so happy to hear. This is the one I thought I'd been missing in my life, this explanation of why things happen. Not everybody asks that. I mean, I always joke, one of my sisters, I have many sisters, one of them never asked that question. She has never thought one time in her whole entire life. She grew up in the same Catholic upbringing as me. She's never thought one time about, is it God, is it not, is it this, is it that, why this, why that. She doesn't have that question. It's amazing, we're all so different, isn't it? It's very interesting. I always had that question. Always wanted a way of understanding the world. Why, And I think we might say we don't care why, we don't know, we don't ask that question. But my feeling is, you look at the commonest response, the most common response we all have when bad things happen. Why is this happening to me? That's the question. And I think that's the question. The extent to which it's horrible is the extent to which the pain and suffering is. Why is this happening to me? Or we look at the world. Why? Why is there war? Why is there environmental this? Why is there that? So we do have the question. And I think it's the reason we suffer so badly if we can't find an answer that's suitable. So we want to point the finger. That's fine. It's good to want that. Pointing a finger to something is trying to locate the cause. We call it the blame, but it means the cause. So the way we tend to think the blame is the cause is out there. It appears to us that way. It seems like that. It really does seem like that. So it's quite hard to hear this approach of the Buddhas. So actually, this is one of the responses to how to deal with problems. Because if the main pain, of the main pain, a main way we suffer so badly when bad things happen, when it's why is this happening to me, then it's helpful to have an answer. Sure, that's why we ask why. Because the commonest, what comes next from that thought is I don't deserve it. This is I think the main way we suffer so badly when bad things happen. So then we should unpack that. It's a very interesting concept, Why, how dare that happen to me? I don't deserve it. We just think no one teaches us that thought. No one teaches us that. It arises automatically. What's interesting is, from the Buddhist perspective, the law that determines what happens where, how, who, which, when, whatever, this law of karma, it applies exactly to the good things as well. But I think, like I joke, I mean it, but I joke, I mean it. I've never yet had anybody ask me the question, why do good things happen? We have to look at that. It's totally, for me, that totally is fascinating. So in other words, you're looking at a garden, and the only time you ask, what's the cause of that is when it's a weed. You take the flowers for granted, which is very weird. But botany applies to both, doesn't it? So it shows we have some very powerful view already in our bones that we can't articulate for why bad things happen, for why weeds come. But we don't ask it about the flowers. So it shows it indicates something about our mind, doesn't it? The fact that we take the flowers for granted, and you know why? Because we think we deserve them. So we think we don't deserve bad and we do deserve good. So those assumptions are fascinating to look at, I think, in our mind. I find that very, very fascinating to look at those assumptions, because that's what's behind why the bad things happen, but never why the good things happen. So that, in other words, there has to be an assumption in our mind that's very packed in there that we haven't been taught. That bad things shouldn't happen, and we don't deserve them. and that good things should happen and we deserve them. So it's very fascinating to look at that, I think. So the Buddha's analysis is to do with these neuroses in the mind. The Buddha talks about, we've got these neurotic states of mind. I mean, he didn't use that word, you know, it wasn't coined then, was it? Didn't speak Greek. Attachment, anger, depression, anxiety, all these fears, you know, they call them the fears of samsara. The character of all these unhappy states of mind, these neurotic states of mind, is fear. Kind of fascinating. They're really not happy. They're stressed, very unhappy. They're very constricted. They make us feel unhappy. They make us feel, you know, neurotic. They make us feel very constricted, isolated, locked into ourselves. And then we've got the positive states of mind. Our saving grace, compassion, kindness, and intelligence, and confidence, perseverance, and the positive qualities. We all know these. We all know these. We all know these. The weeds and the flowers, you know, we know them in our garden. So, of course, if we're materialists, we think they came from our mother and father. And if we're a Christian or a Muslim, they came from God. But I think, no, that's not quite right. I don't quite know the understanding. No, I think the Christian teaching is that God made you and he gives you free will. And then we choose to be good or bad. So he gives us the responsibility for that. And that's fine. I'm not complaining. But that's not the Buddha's view. There's no such concept. There's no such concept. As far as the Buddha's concerned, it's a fabrication. We've made it up. He suggests from his own observation that our consciousness is not physical, that it didn't start in our mother's womb, it doesn't come from a superior being, but it's got its own continuity. It's like they talk about mental continuum, this river of mental moments that goes back and back and back. Doesn't need creating. He would call that a misconception. Don't just believe him. I'm just telling you what he says. It's up to us to look into what he says. But it's coming from his own experience, not from on high. This is what he's observed. And we come into this life programmed with all these different states of mind, to one degree or another. So we can see the Mother Teresa's of the world and the Hitlers of the world. And we're somewhere in between, aren't we? So this view of I deserve only happiness and I don't deserve suffering, they are the assumptions of attachment and aversion. It's very interesting. Very fascinating. These are the two main problems, the two main of these neurotic states of mind that completely run the show for all living beings, to one degree or another. When you're a highly evolved being, what they call bodhisattva, who's quit ego grasping, who's quit attachment and aversion, and the Buddha is saying we can. And those who quit the rubbish ones, they only have the virtues left. They only have the positive qualities. That's a pretty crazy idea. There's no equivalent of that in modern psychology, that you can get rid of all the rubbish. That's pretty shocking. We give equal status to them, don't we? From the Western perspective, from the neuroscientific perspective. A normal person has a bit of anger, a bit of love, a bit of depression, a bit of anxiety, you know, hopefully more of the good, less of the bad. There's no view in neuroscience or modern psychology that suggests that you can rid the mind utterly of the neurotic ones. And that's Buddha's view. That's what he means by nirvana. It's not some place like heaven. Nirvana is referring to the ending of suffering and its causes, which is these neuroses. That's the Buddha's view. That's what his view is. That's his observation. That's the goal, and it's the goal that he accomplished. So he gives us his methodology. So this is the point. If we're taking on board this idea that you can get rid of attachment and aversion and all the other dramas, then we better understand what they are, isn't it? So you can identify them. If you don't need to, if you can get to a point where no longer weeds will come into your garden, you better know how to define a weed and understand what causes it and what it is, so you can then make sure you don't have any more of it. That's reasonable. So Buddha talks about thousands of neurotic states of mind, but he narrows them all down, doesn't he? You read any Buddhist books, you're going to hear about the three poisons, these three toxic emotions. And the two main ones in day-to-day life, attachment and aversion. Very simple. It seems so boring, but so simple. Neuroses, mental illnesses. The term they use in Buddhist psychology with these neurotic states of mind is the word affliction, mental affliction. Well, it's a bit arcane. We don't use that term much in our life, do we? So mental illness is, I think, a really great phrase. It's very shocking to hear that. I think it's a good translation of the term, whatever it was in Sanskrit, klesha. I think it's a good translation. Mental affliction, mental illness. Why not? And we're all mentally ill, Buddha says. It's a question of degree, that's all. Until you've achieved nirvana, which is mean quit the rubbish. I mean, it's talking your mind or some mysterious thing like a soul. There's no term like that. So if then the assumption I only deserve good things, and which causes us to be frantically trying to get the good things and to avoid the bad because we don't deserve those, then we better unpack these assumptions, haven't we? It's very logical, very practical. Then by understanding this, we can learn to know how to deal with the problem when it comes, so we can, not be overwhelmed by it. So there's attachment. It's so subtle, it's so pervasive, it's hard to identify, at more subtle levels. When it's a very gross level, they use the word craving, this unhappy kind of coming from dissatisfaction, craving something more. It's fairly, at a very gross level, it's fairly evident, isn't it? The objects of the senses, we can see that level. But it's got way more subtle levels, way more subtle, way more subtle. And the more we practice, the more we can identify, and unpack, unravel, get more subtle, more deep into the mind to see the subtle levels. So it's obvious if attachment runs the show, and that is the one, aversion is the response to when attachment doesn't get what it wants. If attachment runs the show, this default assumption that I only must get the nice things, and more brutally, I only must get what I want, because that's what it means. It's only nice for me. That's why we fight with people, because what they think is nice is something different. That's why we argue. So what nice means what I want. That's the energy of attachment. It's necessarily self-centered. It's necessarily I-based. It's fear-based. It's constricted. It's narrow. It's fearful. In its nature, it's rooted in fear. And it's the main voice of the root problem. And it's referred to merely as ignorance in Tibetan, maripa, but it's colloquially known as ego grasping. That's even more subtle, even more hard to identify. This primordial assumption of a concrete, set in stone me. This is so fun. Its main voice is attachment, this energy of what I want. So it's one level of energy of it is dissatisfaction, always wanting something, and then necessarily then manipulating to get it, and then expecting it, and anticipating. And then the key one is to exaggerate its deliciousness and to exaggerate its role in bringing me happiness. This is the problem of attachment. And it's there all the time. Much of the time at quite a subtle level, because if it is getting what it wants every second, which means basically when you wake up in the morning, the weather's not too bad, there's no particular pain in the body, the boyfriend's being very sweet, the food is nice, the coffee's hot. When things happen 1 second after the other, which is attachment getting what it wants. So as long as attachment keeps getting what it wants to some degree, then we don't notice it. So it's when the coffee's the wrong taste, when there's a pain in the knee, when you miss the train, when the light is red, when the tiny baby events happen that aren't what attachment wants, then we notice. Because that's when aversion arises, and that's called the problem. So we're really trying to practice, give up attachment. If we're on this path, and that's our goal, we learn to identify it in our daily practice, is to recognize it in the mind and then try to avert it, check it, avert it, work with it when it comes, when it's very subtle, it's very hard. The only time we notice attachment is when it doesn't get what it wants. That's a problem. Then that's the chance. That's the opportunity for practice. That second is the opportunity for practice. But it takes a lot of courage. Because as I said, the first impulse to a thing that attachment doesn't want, labeled a problem, is how dare that happen? I don't deserve it. Even you stub your toe. I would use a simple example. You stub your toe The feeling is it's not fair. Why did that happen to me? Well, it's a really powerful one. That's very explicit for our mind. How dare that happen to me? I don't deserve it. That's what aversion thinks. So attachment is the assumption that I only deserve good. But the word deserve is so heavy, but we make that up. We have that concept. And then when we hear about the law of karma, we use this deserve as something very brutal, like a weapon, you know. Because the Buddha is basically saying, we come into this life programmed. No one made us like this. Our mother gives us a body, yes, and genes and DNA, yes, they're all physical, but then a brain, but they're like the physical indicators, my way of putting it, of what's happening in your mind, which is not physical, which is not the DNA, which is not the genes, which is not the brain. The mind is yours. Nothing to do with your parents, nothing to do with such a thing as a creator, nothing to do with Buddha. Your consciousness is this continuity of mental moments programmed by itself every millisecond. Whatever you think and do and say programs this mind of yours. And it comes from past life, programmed by a certain karma. The way they talk about karma, like you've got seeds into your mind, you program your mind. You died, certain karma ripened, you're programmed, and eventually you run like a magnet to your mother's fallopian tube, which is in union with your father. It's all described in the literature. This is the observation of the Buddha's point of view. So you come into this life programmed with your mind, your tendencies, your characteristics. You've been good at football, you've been good at music. You come into this life program with those tendencies. You come into this life program with the karmic seeds that cause you to meet that particular person, have that particular mother, that particular boyfriend, that particular neighbor, that particular enemy, that particular action to happen. Karma is a natural law, Buddha says. It's not random. Like botany is a natural law. We know even if nobody knows about botany, it's still working. It's not as if botany goes to sleep at night because no one's running it. It's not as if you're not looking at the garden, it doesn't work. No, it's a natural law. And clever people called botanists have come along and have identified it and articulated the laws that they've observed. But they didn't create botany. That's an absurd idea. That's why for Buddha, the concept of a creator is an absurd idea, not being rude. Don't need creativity. There's no one running the show. There's no one pulling the strings. There's no one punishing. There's no one rewarding. And these are the views we have very strongly. So we always have this feeling, well, how dare something bad happen to me? Sort of like we try to find out who did it, you know, who caused it. We all believe in conspiracy theories, you know, not just Mr. Trump's friends. Someone created you. I'm not trying to be rude. Well, I always sound rude. When I say that when I'm about to be rude, I say, the concept of a creator, you flip that over, and that's like the devil ones, and it's somebody out there evil running everything. That's why I can't stand those movies like that Peter Jackson makes. You know, those movies, all the people with the ears and everything. But you know, that ones. I can't describe how I can't abide. Because there is a variation of God. There are variation of creator, you know. There's somebody behind all the bad and somebody behind all the good, pulling it all. That's completely superstitious from the Buddhist perspective. And that's how we feel ourselves. We're very dualistic. Like who caused it? You know, where's all the problem? Where's you've got to find someone behind it, you know. But the Buddha says, look in your own mind. It's such a concept. For me, karma is such an outrageous concept. It's extraordinarily powerful, but very weird initially, you know, that we are the cause of our problem. We are the cause of our happiness. Even the way the world manifests in front of us physically is a result of karma, Buddha says. It's extremely fascinating. There are 4 ways. They say that our past actions, programming our mind, will then ripen. One is the type of rebirth you get for a start. And that's already shocking. I mean, the feeling we have is that this idea of someone making us, they kind of created us and then put us on the earth. I mean, I always joke about it, and I mean it, although it sounds really very weird. But I find that a pretty shocking idea, you know, that somebody, my mother and my father, 2 neurotic people, I mean, they're lovely as well, but they've got neuroses, that they decide to make another version of themselves, me, and put me on this earth. And then I go to my therapist and she says, I've got to sort it out, you know, excuse me, it's their mistake. You can't blame Mr. What's his name? The one who made Frankenstein's monster, isn't it? I don't know, I've never read the book, but that one. He makes he creates, and this is really what the creation is. He makes it, and then they become this monster. Well, you can't blame the poor monster. Mr. Frankenstein's the problem. He created this thing. That's the idea of some, so that the thought that I'm made by somebody else. I mean, all I know is using this view of karma, which I like all these years of my life, trying to apply it in my life, is the most powerful tool psychologically that enables you to lead your life and learn to deal with things and understand things and why this and why that. So therefore, learn to become more clear and more wise and more brave and less neurotic, less angry, less jealous, less attached. Because attachment and aversion are the assumptions of an innocent victim. Someone did it to me. And the thing is, this is not contradicting that bad things don't happen. They do. And it does not contradict that good things don't happen. They do. And there are outside people who do them to us. They do. It's a fact. They're facts. But that's all we see. Because behind that, we don't know why they happen. We know that the boyfriend punches in the nose, but we don't know why it happened. And then we think, how dare he? I don't deserve it. It's not my fault. And then when good things happen, we really want more, don't care why. So this tells us about these assumptions in the mind. I find this very fascinating, I tell you. So the view of karma is basically, as Dalai Lama says, it's like self-creation. You come into this life programmed. Even before you stop breathing in the past life, but more than a few weeks before you found your way to your mother's fallopian tube, particular karmic seeds that you planted in your mind, because the Buddha's view is that nothing ever goes astray. Everything we ever think and do and say, nothing we ever think and do and say disappears. It doesn't just go in one ear and out the other. It stays imprinted, planted in your mind. It's a fascinating concept. And you are the boss. You are the one who puts those things into your mind. The idea that someone can put anger into your mind is very weird for the Buddha. Equally, love and compassion. They're your qualities. They're in your mind. And they're from your past practice. I mean, it's hardly rocket science. If I see you playing piano, I'm not surprised when I say, but why are you so good at piano? Well, I mean, excuse me, Robina, I've been practicing for 10 years. What do you expect? Well, you come into this life with anger and jealousy and love and compassion. You must be practicing. Your mind continues on, founds this particular mother due to the past karma you created with that particular mother. And then you come out into this life. That's the first cause. First type of karma, the type of body you get. Life, in this case, human, and that's like winning a lottery in Buddhism, like amazing, the fruit of virtue and goodness, you get a human life. And then the second way the karma ripens is the mind in this human body. So that you have your Hitlers and your Mother Teresa's. Both due to virtuous karma, they get a decent human mother. Then due to their other actions, you get your mental tendencies, your personality traits, your tendencies, your characteristics, your mind itself. It's how it is, positive, negative, clever, good at math, good at music, good at football, whatever it might be, all your own mental tendencies, they're yours. This is the most powerful one about karma. No one to blame, including yourself. They're just your habits, The third way your karma ripens is called experiences. And that's basically is how we're seen and treated by others. We're all very social creatures, aren't we? We don't just live in isolation. We have mothers and fathers and sisters and brothers and rats and cockroaches and aunties and aunts and dogs and enemies and friends. So every single one of those experiences, the main cause of them is your past karma. The main cause of your tendencies is your own past actions. The main cause of your body is your own past actions. The main cause of all your experiences at the hands of others is your past actions. That's always the first cause. And then the secondary cause, the boyfriend loving you or hating you, that's the secondary cause, or the catalyst for your experience of happiness or suffering. This is the Buddhist view of karma. So what's the implication of this? It puts you in charge. I love that idea. It stops you feeling like a victim. Stops you feeling like a conspiracy theory. Somebody out there does it to you. You know your boyfriend kissed you and you know your boyfriend punched you, but you know behind that, yes, there are causes in your mind. In your mind, in your mind. So because it's in your mind, you can do something about it. If it's truly from the outside, no wonder you're powerless. You can do nothing. We know that. We can change our mind. So even this view I have found in my own life, even this view, having this, supposed philosophical presentation that you then use experientially by thinking of it every day until it eventually becomes experiential. That's what you do with any body of knowledge, isn't it? You start off with musical theory, which is completely conceptual, and then slowly you internalize it by playing, then you can play the piano. Well, it's the same here. It's a presentation of Buddha's observation of why things happen. You don't have to think about it. I chose to. Here I am all these years later. That's my decision. Using this as my view of why. So when I start to take on board, which is painful, that this experience is the fruit of my past actions, this tendency is the fruit of my past actions, both the good and the bad, and you own them, then it lessens the emotional hunger of neediness. It lessens this hubris of I only deserve good, because you know that you created the cause. That's why I use the example, a really simple example of a garden. When you look at a garden, your garden, your garden, that means you are in charge of it. That means what's there is what you put there or what you didn't pull out. So you already, there's ownership. When you have that, there's ownership of it. Therefore, why would you be angry? Because anger's saying, who put that weed in my garden? I'm an innocent victim. Who did that to me? That's what anger says. Or attachment says, I only deserve flowers. But if they're yours, then you own them. Therefore, attachment and aversion disappear. Could you take responsibility? They're my garden. That's my weeds. I mustn't pull them out. It's my flowers. What can I do about it? So it's ownership. It's so confident. This is the result of having the view of karma, in my opinion, my own experience. Because you feel responsible, you feel in charge, you feel accountable, you feel like the boss, not a victim. Of course, it's difficult. My God, life is too painful. Terrible things happen to people. To have this view is pretty intense. So don't wait for the heavy duty thing. Start with stubbing your toe. Start with a red light. Start with the baby activities, But the trouble is we don't. We don't. We just float along, taking things for granted. And then terrible things happen, just all the time. Every day you read about terrible things happening overnight. Nobody expected it. So start with the small ones, the baby events. So the attitude then of how to deal with problems, as Lama Zopa says, you've got to learn to like problems like we like ice cream. Was really a great analogy. It sounds hilarious to us. What are you talking? What do you mean? We so take it for granted, don't we? That a problem, when something happens that I don't want, especially if it's pain and really powerful difficulties, it seems a bizarre idea to interpret them differently. That's all it's saying here. So this is why this particular approach in the Buddhist practice, in the levels of practice, this is a more advanced level. The first one is to at least avoid problems. Do your best, And then if they arise, you try to keep your mind steady. You try not to respond too much with anger. You control your body, speech, and mind. But this more advanced level is taught in the compassion wing. It's taught in the Bodhisattva teachings. And why? It's because it's got the powerful function of it is actually rooted in the concept of emptiness, that nothing has an intrinsic nature. It's a more advanced teaching necessarily. Because when you're caught up in the misery of problems and nice things, if you don't know botany, if you don't know botany, you can only handle the flowers and you really just can't handle the weeds. But when you learn botany, or you become a herbalist or something, you then start to see that you can use weeds. And you have a whole different view of weeds now. You can use weeds, you can use poison as medicine. That's the more advanced level, isn't it? We understand that. We understand that. That's the attitude here. So why would you want to reinterpret a problem? Why would you want to learn to welcome a problem, like ice cream? Why? It's not some moralistic thing. It's practical for you. Given that, given that a bad thing has happened, which is exactly what attachment doesn't want, which causes the anxiety and the fear and the anger. That's called suffering, isn't it? Apart from this external thing, the mental one is suffering. So we don't want that suffering. We're trying to get rid of suffering. We're trying to get rid of suffering. If you can't change the external, at least you can change the mind. This is why I always like to use the examples of my friends in prison. Always my friend Sunny is one I continually use as an example. Or these nuns, these Tibetan nuns I always use the example of years ago. 20 years ago, Richard Gere had invited, I was based in California, and I was working with this prison project. And I remember he invited the Dalai Lama to come to New York, and he also invited a bunch of ex-prisoners, about 20 former prisoners, all of whom had done some kind of meditation in prison. And then some people like me were invited as well, who worked with people in prison. It was a very moving day, you know, incredible. They heard that they met the Dalai Lama, they all talked about their problems and the dramas in prison, you know, the racism, the this, the that. There's a whole cross-section of American people invited, you know, male, female, white, black, Puerto Rican, political prisoners, you know, other ones, all discussing their problems and dramas in prison. And he invited 2 young Tibetan nuns who'd been imprisoned in Tibet and kind of sexually abused and tortured. So it was very interesting to hear them describing their experiences and talking about their experiences. I think what was evident to the Americans was, if you wanted to kind of quantify suffering, theirs were probably the worst, if you want to quantify, you know. But what was very evident, the Americans, meaning Western people, us, we don't have a view of karma, that they weren't angry. And this is something so fascinating. They weren't angry. They were quiet, they were sad, there were tears, but they were evidently not angry. In other words, there wasn't that anguish. Think about it. There wasn't that anguish of, why did this happen to us? We don't deserve it. Which is enough to make, this is not criticizing us as human beings. It's showing the depth of our suffering. This is what makes people go completely lose their minds. This is exactly what mental suffering is. And we just don't, we get to a point where we're just not able to bear the suffering of life. This is Buddha's analysis of why. And then his methods of how to stop it, or how to deal with it. So then these 2 young women, raped, abused, in prison, tortured, now come out, and there they were, telling their problems, telling their suffering, you know. But there was a sadness, but not anger. And that's the point I want to talk about. It's so fascinating. So in other words, when we go beneath the emotion of anger or the emotion of attachment, which is what we have to do to unpack them. As I said, anger is evidently, isn't it? How dare that happen? So if it's anger for other people, how dare that happen to them? And by definition, that means they don't deserve it, doesn't it? We mean that. We mean that. I'm talking psychologically. I'm trying to talk about political things here. It could be political. But that's not what I'm trying to discuss, like a political issue. It's the way we respond psychologically to things. But look at the psychology of anger, the psychology of attachment. So these young women, if you could argue, if you take anger as a norm, they have every reason, you'd say, to be angry. They were abused sexually and tortured. So you have to ask the question, excuse me, what's their problem? I mean, in fact, we would be suspicious that they're not angry, or they're just suppressing, you know, or they're kind of being goody-goody. We've got to analyze it. It's because they have the view of karma. And I really mean this. You see, we don't think that we have a view, period. We don't think we have a view, but if we analyze our minds, we have a very powerful view. If we're philosophical materialists, one of the commonest things people who are materialists say is, oh, I don't have any beliefs. That's hilarious from the Buddhist perspective. A Christian believes in the creator, and that's pretty good. You'd live a good life if you had faith in the creator. I'm not complaining. God has a plan. He doesn't have to tell me, and I trust him. That's a pretty good way to live your life, and I'm not being sarcastic. I think it's incredible. If you're a materialist, philosophical materialist, you know, you say, I don't have a belief. You do have a belief. You believe your mother made you. You believe your mind's your brain. You believe that it's genes and DNA and all the other. They're the main reasons. You believe that. That's a belief. It's a belief. We've all got beliefs. Some are rooted in reality and some are made up nonsense. We have to discover which. So Buddha's got another view. They're viewpoints. They're all viewpoints. They're viewpoints. Some might have a valid basis. Some might be useful. Some might have no valid basis and be not useful. It's helpful to also have one that's a valid basis, and that takes time to see. That's wisdom. And of course, Christians say their view is right. Scientists say their view is right. Buddha says his view is right. Muslims say their view is right. Australian Aboriginals say their view is right, and their view is so complex I can't even articulate it. Something about dream time. It's so complex. So we're left alone for 40,000 years until the white people came along with their own view, with their view of the world. So all humans have got a view. We've all got a view. And if it's automatic, we don't think it's a view. We just think it's reality. We don't think it's a view. That's where we're stuck. So there's these young women who happen to have the view of karma. It's been in their culture for, like, Padmasambhava came along in about the 7th century to Tibet. And then since then, I think maybe 99% of Tibetans are Buddhist. A couple of Muslims in Lhasa, I think. Christians went along, the Catholics went along in the 14th century to try to convert them. Even translated the Bible into Tibetan, didn't do any good. They had to leave again, empty-handed. So 99% of Tibetans were, not now, sure, not now, it's different now, which were Buddhists, which means, and because they had this monastic university system where there's like 1/6 of the population were monks, probably not so many nuns, but pretty patriarchal. More and more nuns now, studying in the same way, doing the same things. So this monastic university system where they studied intensively this view, these world views, these views coming from the time of the Buddha, and then when it was really rich in India, the Landa system, the monastic university in India at the time, around about where Rajgir in northern India, where they studied, and people went 20, 30 years studying intensively the Buddhist worldview. That was carried in the minds of these holy beings of Tibet. And then entrenched there, it became the view that, so the Buddhist view of karma, the view of karma is in people's minds, in the bones of their being, just like when we're brought up as materialists, like the bones of our being is the view of, science. It's just how it is. Or the view of a creator. It's automatic. It's the view in your community and your world. So their view is karma. And they don't just know the word, it's completely in their being. They've been brought up with it since they began. They know they came from a previous life, they have this view, and it becomes part of their practice, not just intellectual. Means whenever things happen, good or bad, they know that they are the main cause of it. They know that their life is their garden. What's in their garden, they put it there. Good things or bad things. So when, of course, they come along and this bad thing happens, they get arrested, tortured, sexually abused. Must be difficult, but that's the view informing their capacity to deal with it, not to resist it and go mad. So my friend Sunny in prison, another example. She had no interest in religious views. She doesn't have a religious view, but she was arrested, accused with her husband of murdering 2 policemen, and she was sentenced to death back in the 70s. Husband was executed. Even his head burst into flames when she went there, to see the execution. Like nightmare, one nightmare after another. Her children were given to her, taken care of by her parents, and then the parents died in a car accident. They were given to the state. She lost her children, her parents, husband was executed, and she's innocent. So it's enough to make people go mad. And I know enough prisoners and people all over the world. And one of the major sufferings is when you're innocent and you're being accused of the terrible things. And prisons are so brutalized that you just become, what's the word? Infantilized. I can't think of the right word. And the depression and despair. So this woman, Sunny, there she was locked in a cell on her own for years. For the majority of her 12 years, she was on death row. And they gave her a Bible, that's it. So you can imagine initially the absolute disbelief that this thing is happening, because you're totally innocent. So most people go mad because they have no resource, inner resources. There's nothing you can do in this cell. She found, and that's why she blows my mind, because she's not a Buddhist or a Christian or anything else. She's out of prison now, and we talk about it. She had no view like this. She found the resources internally to reinterpret her experience. So she became sane and wise and compassionate and useful. She said, finally, I realized I couldn't change anything, that they couldn't take my mind from me. So she literally worked on reconfiguring her thoughts and feelings and emotions, quite literally, which is exactly what Buddhist practice is, but she's not a Buddhist. So that's why I find it so powerful. She found this in herself, this ability to know that she couldn't change the outside, but she can change her interpretation of it. That's what transforming problems means. I mean, she's so astonishing because she's so unusual. So when you meet her now, you would never, she's this little old lady, she's in a wheelchair, 80-something. You would never, ever get any inkling that she's had this nightmare of 17 years in prison. In other words, she's got no PTSD. You know why? Because she's able to deal with it and throw it away. We all carry. I mean, we come into this life carrying countless lives of burdens. And then we carry burdens from our tiny childhood because we haven't had the resources internally to deal with them. So we bury them, either get rage or despair or guilt or whatever it might be. And you can't make it all go away. It's going to come out in one way or another. So start with stubbing your toe, okay? So even that's a revelation. We'll say, well, of course I'm angry. I just stubbed my toe. What do you expect? So even the fact that we assume there's no choice but to be angry, that's already the suffering. We just assume we're stuck in it. But she said, I couldn't change anything, but they couldn't take my mind. So just think, I can't change the stubbing the toe, but I can change my mind about it. And that's the thing that's already a revelation, to know there's one event called the external one, the pain in the toe. That's one thing. And then there's your mind interpreting it. That's the revelation to see. And that's already incredible if we can do that. We assume I've got no choice. That's the point. That's the miracle, that we can start to separate the external and our mind. There's the world out there, and then there's our interpretation. That's the miracle. And why should we interpret it differently? Because we want to be happy and not suffer. And anger makes you suffer. So this Sunny stopped suffering. These two young nuns, sure, they'd be happy to be out of prison. They rejoiced when they got out of prison. They didn't say, oh, no, we're still happy, keep us in prison. No, they ran away when they got out, happy. But they stopped suffering internally because they had a different interpretation. And this is why the point is, they said, one of them said, sadly, at the end, she said, when they're telling their story. And of course, she said, we had compassion for our torturers. Because we know we must have harmed them in the past. That's the logic of karma. If anything happens, if there's a flower there in your garden, it's your flower. You own it, and then you delight it. And if there's a weed, you own it, and you think, I must put it out. It's my weed. So that's these young women had that view. So to that degree, they didn't suffer so much. And Sunny, to that degree too, she talked about karma. She has no interest in karma, doesn't talk about it. She changed the way, she changed her interpretation of that external environment. Those young women changed their interpretation of that external environment. That's really the way to put it. And that really, in essence, is the Buddhist approach. He's found that our mind is infinitely flexible, and it is the main source of whether we suffer or are happy, not the external. That's all he's saying. That's all he's saying. That's all he's saying, which is pretty incredible. So it's a method to get happy. It's not a method to beat yourself and be guilty and, you know, some drama queen. Not like that. It's a method to get happy. Right now, and in the future, because everything you think and do and say programs you. So why would you want to program yourself with anger and rage and despair? Just become more angry, more raging, and more despair in the future. Don't want that. So it's practical. So this is the Buddhist approach to life. Any questions? I talked for a whole hour. So any questions on the computer here, on Zoom? Anybody? Yes, my dear Eileen, sweetheart.
Thank you, Robina.
Yes.
I take it, I have one question, but involves two different things: individual karma and collective karma. So everything.
Can you hear her?
Can,
you can hear her? Mm-hmm. Good, go on.
So I take it that everything in our lives, the race we're born into, the gender we're born into, our parent, the whole 9 yards, those causes were set in the
Yeah, I
causes
mean,
for
yeah, the
that.
causes of your flower today are the seeds you planted before, aren't they? Same thing. That's right.
Yes. So
Yeah.
in terms of collective karma,
Yeah.
because we all went through the pandemic and throughout the
That's
whole
right.
world, and now we're
Exactly.
dealing with two major wars at the same time. So
That's
in
right.
terms of collective karma,
Yes.
it seems like a
Yes.
whole group of people are suffering in different ways.
And also having happiness in different ways. Happiness is also
Yes.
the fruit of karma, dear.
Yes.
So all the group of people, like in some one little town, I always think of Switzerland being all nice and clean. I remember one Tibetan Lama was asked how he thought of, I think it might have been Switzerland, the city he was in. He said, or he might have been the West in general, but not necessarily New York. I've never been to New York. He said, it's so clean and you keep on cleaning it. I don't think it's something about New York, maybe about Zurich or something. Anyway, so there you are living in a little city, like I always think of a little Swiss town with little mountains and little houses where really things are cleaner in Zurich. I could not believe that things really are. People's kitchens are clean and their cupboards are clean. The floors are cleaner. They don't seem to make an effort. It just somehow, do you understand? It's fascinating to see it. So that's collective karma too. So basically, yes, we do things. We're very social beings, aren't we, Eileen? We do things in groups, don't we? So you could argue, so you see, we experience things in groups. Women is a very powerful particular group. Many women have a similar experience all the way from Australian Aboriginals to up in Finland, there's a similar group karma. We're born a particular way due to similar causes, and we get a similar experience. We can tell like that. And groups of people in one place for sure have a group karma. Tibetans had the group karma to be tortured and abused and their country taken away by the Chinese communists. That's very, very strong group karma. Of course it is. Good and bad, because we do things together, so we experience the results together. It's hardly surprising.
I see. So what you're saying is that in a country, if people as a group,
well, country is one group, isn't it? But there's more than that. Country is one particular group. That's all. Just groups of people, groups of races, groups of genders, groups of everything. There's just groups of people. I mean, you could even say, a group of people who all like a certain football team. There's one group, they've got a group karma, they will hate the other football team. They create some forward, together as a group. Families of groups.
But it begins individually, and then you gravitate towards that group. Am I understanding?
Well, I mean, groups are just made up of a bunch of individuals, aren't they? With similar views. And then you leave that view and you leave that group because you now got another view. So we're always going in groups with the people who are like-minded, isn't it? So we've got similar karma. Yes. So Australians have this, and the Aboriginals have that karma, white people, black people, whatever you want to call, whatever label you've got for the way we all are described, there's group karma, of course there is, And so the pandemic one, that's called, I didn't finish the one of karma before, but first way karma right is the type of rebirth you get. The second one was in your mind within that rebirth and all the different tendencies, and you can see the differences among humans for that reason. The third is your experiences. Right. Really at the hands of others, how you're seen and treated. And the fourth is even called environmental karma, the physical world. So the fruit of anger, for example, anger would cause you to get, if anger is triggered at the time of your death, that would cause you to get a very suffering type of rebirth, like an animal or something, depending on the kind of animal. Then second, anger as a tendency, you're born with in this life with a tendency to be angry. The result of anger as an experience is people get, people don't like you, treat you badly, harm you, are angry with you. And then the result, no, sorry, not anger, I meant killing. I meant killing, forgive me. Killing, non-killing brings a human body. You wake up in this life, if you've got the tendency to kill, you wake up in this life with the result of killing is a tendency to kill. The third one, experience of killing, is you get killed or die young. And the fourth result of killing is sickness, or body is unhealthy, the food is polluted, the air is polluted, all the environmental suffering. This is the collective karma of the entire human world, including animals, of past killing, that the environment is harmful to us. The external, the immediate cause of the environmental stuff is obviously we all know that. But the long-term cause of why we're born into a particular place where the environment is a disaster, that's from 70 million past lives ago, and that's collective karma. So the pandemic is a collective karmic experience of all the millions of humans who got sick or died. Do you understand? I see. Collective karma. Right. Do you understand?
Yes.
And that's the thing, it's like all the external is, the view of karma doesn't deny the external. Sickness is sickness. But there's always a cause behind it, not a creator, not a person pulling the strings, not a punishment and not a rewarder. It's just this natural law that everything we experience is what's called suffering is the fruit of harming and delusion. And everything that's a source of happiness. And again, it's not judgment and punishment and reward. There's no view like that. It's a natural thing. My Catholic mother used to say, virtue has its own rewards. That's what Buddha's saying. Virtue and goodness, which is mind when it's open and spacious and forgiving and loving and kind and empathetic. Of course, if you think that is you're programming yourself with that, how could it not continue to bring those results in your mind? And if you're continuing to be angry and resentful and jealous and arguing and harming and lying and stealing, whatever, of course you're programming yourself with that and setting yourself up for these future results of suffering. It's equal to everybody. There's no sort of, body is not experiencing these. It's just the Buddha's view of why we are who we are and why things happen.
Yes.
Do you understand?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a view that I'm not used to hearing. I agree with you. It's a shock to hear this. But but the way we hear it as an alternative to punishment. Mm-hmm. Oh, you mean I was a bad person? Oh, you mean I deserve it? Oh, you mean I'm a bad person? That's how we hear it. We just whip ourselves with it. But there's no concept of punishment here. Whereas we've got that. If we're a Christian, I'm not complaining. I love my Christian background. But by definition, yes, you do suffer. You are punished by God. It's a fact. And we think that karma is another version of punishment or reward, one or the other. And that even by definition is what a Christian would say a sin is. A sin is doing what God said not to do. That's what defines an action as bad, is that God said not to do it. That's pretty intense. No such concept like that. That's like thinking your doctor says don't smoke. And that because why? Because she says, and if you smoke, she'll give you cancer. That's how we think about morality. It's very infantile. Do you understand?
Yes.
You laugh to your doctor. She said, I'll give you cancer. And then you go home and she doesn't see you smoke. Oh, I won't get cancer if she doesn't see me. So out come the Marlboros. It's ridiculous, You understand?
Gotcha. Thank
So
you.
it's a very powerful view, the one of karma. It really takes a while to think about it, to think it through, and to even hypothesize it and use it in your life as your interpretation of why things happen, good and bad. Do you understand, Amy?
I do.
Yeah. What else? Yes.
Just thinking about the metaphor of the garden.
Yes.
How do we delight in the flowers without that becoming attached?
Exactly, darling. That's the point. Of course, that's exactly what we want is the flowers. So that's where the skill is. Instead of having aversion to the weeds and hating them and kicking them and grasping at the flowers, you've just destroyed them, is to be delighted and rejoice that you work so hard, which is, I think, how we do. If you know that I think that comes, if you know you work so hard, you remember the work you did, right, to get those flowers, you will never take it for granted. You won't just greedily, like if it's veggies, there's no way you just greedily eat them up. You're going to rejoice in every one. You'll remember your hard work, and you'll make sure that you'll rejoice in them, and you really see them as delicious, and you'll make sure you plant more. But if you just take them for granted, like you're lucky, you deserve flowers, you're like a little greedy child who'll eat them all up and then get complained because there's none left. So if you have the view that you are the gardener, you would never get very attached. You'll only rejoice. Do you understand my point? And you'll rejoice and you'll be happy and you'll make sure you plant more and you'll appreciate every one of them. So you will never get attached. Attached is the symptom of an innocent child who just says, give me more. It's like hubris. Do you understand?
Yes.
You would not have
and it's the same for attachment and aversion.
Exactly. That's the point. Really and truly. So by having with your karma, which is ownership of your experiences, it lessens attachment, because attachment is the view of an innocent victim who just, you better give me good things. You'd better give me good things. How dare you give me bad? There's no view like that. It changes that view. Do you understand?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I find that for sure. There's accountability and ownership. So you delight in the flowers, you delight in the veggies, you delight in and even if you have a good life, and you've got a good body and healthy and happy and good friends, with the view of karma, you would never abuse that. You would never take it for granted. You would never, not for 1 second. Because attachment is the view that it's just no reason for it. And someone does it to you. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So it counteracts it completely. It's very powerful. Yes.
Thanks for teaching.
All right, lovely.
Much of thought on death and dying. I work with grieving people
Wonderful.
and dying people also, but grieving people, you begin by saying the question why things happen and why things are happening to me. And that's the question I hear a lot with grieving people.
Really?
When they lost their mother,
Yes.
or someone else, but
Yes.
I have a lot of people that lost their mother and they're like, why is it happening? Why is it happening to me? Why did
That's
she have to
interesting.
die? And so on. Despite the person was a certain age, despite
Very
the person
interesting.
had 3 cancer or something.
That's right.
And
So how do you help them? What's your view? What's your approach?
well, I'm trying to not bring too much of my,
course
my
not.
personal practice into that, right? But it's difficult to witness that suffering, that pure raw suffering, expression of that and the pain. And I sometimes I'm not able to see the mind grasping and be attached to that suffering of why, and obviously I can't answer for them. I'm trying to direct them
Sure.
But
the view of impermanence is pretty impersonal, and it's a pretty logical one.
Yeah.
That this is just the way life is. This
Sure.
has to be beneficial. Has to be
But they can't accept that.
They can't.
No, they can't, like people, they can't accept that. And they're always looking for a guilty person. Sometimes I have some people, they lost someone that had a heart attack, and they're like, but maybe if I had called him last week.
Oh, I see. Yes. No, I
I'm
hear.
like,
Yes.
you really think that if you had
Yes.
called him more often, you
Yes.
would have a heart
Yes.
attack.
Now, this is a very common response, isn't it? Like we're
Yeah.
responsible for it.
So that type of person are asking a lot, why things
Yeah,
happen and why it's happening to me.
Exactly.
So what would be, I know it's there, but what's your thoughts on impermanence and how to,
Well, the first one has to be the first teaching, which is so karma. Forget that; it's too hard for people. Don't even worry about that one. It's not even necessary, because we have to look. So to help a person look at the assumption. I mean, there's an assumption in their mind, So the assumption is that it shouldn't have happened, isn't it? It shouldn't have happened. But somehow, surely, all we can do on that one is try to recognize by looking around and realize that death is natural. I mean, that has to be the one that's most profound, the most basic one, but also profound. Because to start talking about karma is too ridiculous at that point. There's not a question of that. But why it's happening is because it's natural. So in other words, if their flowers all died in their garden, it's the same thing. Why does it happen? Because you think there's no reason for it. And then you find someone to blame for it. And either it becomes yourself or you blame somebody else. But the reality of impermanence is so powerful, really, because it's so logical and so evident, but it's hard to face. Because as you said, the person who thinks, if I'd done this, they're like taking responsibility as if it's their mistake or their fault, isn't it? That's hard to get past. But I think there has to be the one of us trying to recognize by looking at the world that death is natural. I don't know, it's a very hard one, but that surely has to be the first one. In other words, it's not a mistake. I mean, it's hard to see that, especially when babies die. I mean, when babies die, I remember this conference I went to in Sydney one time. There's this doctor in this children's hospital who deals with the death of children and babies, which is the most painful. And you could see that the way he was trying to break it all down, the fear and the guilt and the shame and the inability to talk about it among that kind of environment, and trying to change that and make it more open and more kind, for people to be able to talk about it and get past their grief. I remember he had the morgue in the hospital for the dead babies and children. He had it decorated like a nursery. It was so sweet. He had it decorated like a nursery so that the little children can go, other sisters and brothers can go in and out naturally, looking at the dead. I mean, even that, most people don't want their children to look at it, because so making it very open. In other words, making people accept that it's natural. So this little boy, come and meet my dead brother, So opening it up more, making it more open, this whole business of death. So terrifying for people. We can't talk about it, we can't look at it. So that already loosened it. The little boy's able to, because he's able to deal with his death. He'd come and meet my dead brother, he said, in the morgue, open morgue like a nursery. It was so sweet. So making it more open even in the world, which is what's happening these days. More and more people working in hospice and things. It's wonderful. So that alone, I think, is good already. It's natural. And of course, people say why. Many people don't ask why. Many people don't say why me. Many people don't say that. They just accept, which is great. But if you do ask why me, you better find an answer. So you start looking. If you really want to know why me, you got to look at Christian teaching, the Muslim teaching, the Buddhist teaching, or come up with your own question, your own answer, you know, because people do ask that question. So I find it's very reasonable. But it's hard for people to find an answer. Or to like the answer. Do you understand? Anyway, it's wonderful work you're doing. It's great. What else, people?
Venerable, you have a question?
Yeah. What is it? Who is it? Who is it? I can't. The words are so small on the screen. I can't read them. My poor eyes. Who is? I can't read it. Well, who is it?
Pranam.
Hello there. How are you? Talk to me, sweetheart.
I'm good, Venerable. I just wanted to say it's so nice of you to reply to my emails and help me with prayers
Oh, it's a
and
pleasure.
meditation practice. Yeah,
How's your
when my
darling
dad is-
father? How's your father? Is he doing?
He's
Daddy?
much better. Doctor said that he should be discharged today.
Well done.
So-
Amazing. I'm so pleased. I'm sure the medicine Buddha helped as well.
Yes, sure.
Did he enjoy
And,
the medicine Buddha? He enjoyed it?
so I had, in the end, he was enjoying it. Yes.
Good. He said his father was tapping to the medicine Buddha for mantra, Lama Zopa chanting. That's
Yeah.
wonderful, Pranav. Do you have any questions today or not?
No, Venerable. I just wanted to thank you.
And I'm happy to see you, Pranav. I'm so happy. Thank you, darling. Thank you. Thank you.
Venerable, there's a question in the chat.
Yeah, what is it?
Can you talk briefly about dependent arising? This is from Brad.
Greg.
He says, I don't really understand the concept.
Oh, I understand, yeah. Well, if we look at how we feel when anger, attachment, anxiety, jealousy, you name it, when how we feel when they prevail in our mind or we see other people, we can see, isn't it, that you're very stuck, it's concrete, it's very absolute, you can't see past your own nose, everything's a disaster, everything's set in stone, nothing can change. Would you agree with that, people? Would we agree with that? That's the opposite to dependent arising. So Buddha's saying in reality is that things, you know, think of it this way, using this example, when your mind is more spacious, when your mind is more kind, more patient, more generous, less attached, less angry, your mind is more open and connected to others. Do you notice that?
Mhm.
You're more empathetic and connected. That's dependent arising. Things exist in dependence upon each other. Things that don't sit. What do we say? We're not an island. What do we say? We're not.
No man is an island.
No man is an island. That's what thinking of the opposite of dependent arising. That you're independent, absolute, definite, this or that. It's a nightmare. Reality isn't like that. Reality is that everything exists independently. If people working together makes a group work. I mean, the parts of a computer, if everything's working nicely, that's dependent arising. If one little piece barges in and jumps on top of that piece, then the whole computer will collapse. So a group of people, two people, each being slightly empathetic to the other, you will work as a group. It'll be empathetic. That's dependent arising. Things exist interdependently. Things function interdependently. For things to exist, they need to depend upon this and that. So it's kind of reasonable. In other words, it infers the flip side that nothing is set in stone, nothing is absolute, nothing exists in and of itself, nothing exists as an island, nothing is absolute, nothing is set in stone, we say. That's the view of ego, and that's what causes all the problems. And when we finally realize this dependent arising, and then realize what they call emptiness, which is the absence of that fantasy that things are set in stone. That's a way to put it. So to apply dependent arising, so the Dalai Lama was asked one time, how do you apply emptiness, which is the flip side of dependent arising, in daily life? Or it's really simply, how do you apply dependent arising? He said, it's simple. You simply see things from another point of view, which is exactly what we're talking about. So if you sit there with victim mentality, absolute view of me. How dare the bad thing happen to me? And I only deserve good. That's the view of the opposite of dependent arising. That you don't play any role in this, and this all happening unfairly to poor me. That's the irony of ego. And ego is entrenched in this absoluteness of innocent victim. It's really a way to put it. So when we realize dependent arising, that things are interdependent, and a way of applying. So karma is an example of dependent arising, that things have causes. They're not just existing from their own side. How dare this happen to me? I don't deserve it. That's why those young women, those young nuns had this view, having this view of dependent arising, of the view of karma, cause and effect. Their minds were more spacious. You see things differently. It's why Sunny, she learned to reinterpret, to relabel this outrage, you know. So dependent arising simply is that things exist in dependence upon causes, things exist in dependence upon each other, things exist in dependence upon various conditions, and when they're all working well, things work nicely, a computer or a relationship, when things are all doing their job, all working harmoniously, then that's a simple example of when dependent arising is working nicely. And it implies this more subtle point that therefore there's no intrinsic this or that. There's no independent this or that. There's no thing set in stone, absolute, concrete. That's the way to talk. It takes a while to look at it. It's huge. All of Buddhist teachings lead to this one. I hope that helps, Greg. What else, people?
I think the last time we got together, there was a woman who said, I was maligned, I helped somebody, and she was concerned about it, and he said, you haven't changed, you know, you haven't changed. You're the same, you know, the help that you gave that person, you haven't changed. That helped me so much.
Oh, did it really? Good.
Oh, it helped me so much. And I went to something that I didn't care for the person. She's done thing. And it was like, you haven't changed. So I could go in and I could be around that. And it felt so
good. I'm very happy.
That
Good
was
on you.
very, very
Well, you picked it up and took it, so well done.
yes, but it was like a baby walk.
Amazing. Well done.
It was
Amazing.
great. I'm gonna keep.
Good. Thank you so much. Who else is there? Somebody? No.
Venerable, there's a question from Joey.
Can't hear, Sonny. Can't hear.
There's a question from Kathleen.
Kathleen, okay. Yes, where's Kathleen then?
She has upper left hand corner. You have
I can't hear you, Sonny.
on the screen, upper left hand corner. Kathleen, go ahead.
Hi, it's actually Joey.
That's
Joey.
Joey, not Kathleen.
Yeah,
No, so
Kathleen
talk to me,
is Kathleen's my middle name.
Joey. Bit louder.
Yeah. Oh, okay. You can't hear me too good?
Yeah, I can now. Good.
Okay. When you were just talking and answering the question about I believe independent arising.
Dependent arising.
Independent?
Dependent arising.
Dependent arising, yeah.
Yeah.
When you were talking, something just like clicked, and I even said a swear word. Well, it wasn't that bad. I said, holy shit. I said, holy shit.
Okay.
My question is, does this or can this dependent arising, can it happen to students learning and listening and studying and taking this on as you know, a new view of the world? Can that happen? Like, can it just happen to where my perspective changes and I start looking at things differently?
Well, that's what's happening here. That's what you're talking about.
Okay.
I mean, all we're doing here is, all I'm doing is talking in my own way about the Buddha's view of how things are, you know? And so the point of all that is sort of like if this were botany class and you suddenly one day you go, oh, now I understand. It's obvious. That's what you do when you listen to theory. Not to just see that the biggest danger is we treat all this stuff as just clever intellectual stuff. But if you hear it as advice, then it's actually to be put into practice. Like if you go to, you know, botany class, you don't just fill your head with botany, you go and put it into practice. So that's the point of it. So of course, the more we hear it, the more the penny drops occasionally, and then we put it into practice. That's the whole point of it.
Okay.
That's the whole point. It's got to be experiential in the end. That's right.
Okay.
Do you understand?
Wow.
And
Yeah, I sure do. I sure do.
Good, darling. Good.
Wow.
Good.
Thank you.
All right. What else then? 5 to 9, time to go home soon. So I think, yeah, so take away from this, just don't wait till you've been accused of murdering 2 policemen and put on death row. Don't wait until your husband dies.
Okay.
Like this woman, for example, I always quote her in one class. She said, and this is the common, she lives in fear all the time that her husband would die. So she said, what do I do? You know,
I'll give you more.
I said, well, he will. First, you have to accept the fact that he will die, because part of the struggle is you're terrified he will die, so you're hoping he won't. But it's completely insane because he will. You've got to react. It's sort of like being terrified your flower will wilt. You know that flowers do wilt. So this is why I'm talking about. You've got to. This reality is pretty powerful. So you've got to first face the fact, and this is the point. So then what we then tend to do is, oh my God, he will die. So then you go, oh, well, I might as well sit back and say, no, I'm just going to wait for him to die. No, what you do is, because he will die, you know he will die. So then because you know it's impermanent, you'll make the most of it. That's the attitude. You make the most of it instead of taking him for granted. So then you know he's impermanent. I mean, I always think of this, you know, you go on a holiday for 2 days, a vacation for 2 days to some gorgeous place. You don't say, well, it's going to change in 2 days. What's the point of going? In other words, if it's not permanent and lasting for eternity, why bother? It's ridiculous. There's nothing that's like that. So when you know it's only 2 days, you actually enjoy it all the more because you don't want to waste it. So then you realize it's impermanent. And then you think, well, make the most of it. So that means you won't get angry. You won't fight with him. What's the point? He could drop dead tomorrow. You don't want that. So then if you wake up in the morning and he's still there breathing, then it's a bonus. So you have another day. Then you make your life worthwhile. That's the point. You understand? It's practical. It's totally practical. That's how you do it. So then we think, why did I say all that? Did somebody ask me a question? I just started blurting it out. What? Impermanent. I know, why did I say it?
Don't wait for your husband to die.
Okay, so thank you. Just so start with the stubbing the toe, start with, you know, breaking the cup, start with your husband leaving you. I mean, start with the baby things, because things change. Not to be fatalistic about it. It's reality. And what all that, see, that's the point. All that's pointing to is another delusion in the mind that's very strong. Because we have attachment to something, one of the things of attachment is you know, when you get something, you get the partner, or you get the possession, or you get the something, then attachment is hold on to it and is fearful of losing it. So then what we do is we put another lie on top, which says it's permanent and it won't change. And so both are a lie, and that makes it even more tortured, you know, that makes it even more tortured. We always say we're looking for happiness, and then you get this relationship and you fall in love. And we say, now I've found happiness. What we mean is, now I've set it in stone and going to lock it in and it will never go away now. And then we live in terror of losing it. So that's because of the attachment is over-exaggerating its value to you. And the second one is seeing it as set in stone. And these are 2 lies that work beautifully together, and they're a nightmare. So realize things are impermanent and then make the most of it. And that's why your flowers and your veggies in your garden, you know that they're going to change, you know that they'll go, but you keep growing more, you know. And so when you realize things are more, you're much more flexible. When things are impermanent, you're more flexible, and you don't waste the good. And when the bad happens, you're ready for it, you know. So don't wait till you get accused of murder and you're on death row to start dealing with problems. And don't so start with a small one. This is not just impermanence, but like knowing the stubbing of the toe is a pain in the toe. It's a fact. There is a physical feeling there. It's called pain. is true, but then realize your interpretation of it. And the strength of your suffering is not just from the pain, but it's from your interpretation. And that's why Sunny was so amazing. And she reinterpreted her experience and learned to make the most of it. She did her yoga, she developed her own way, she had her own style, she had her own approach to things, she changed her mind. So start with the baby things. Don't wait till the drama's happening. Then you're ready for the big ones. That's it. Semcho Rinpoche ma ke panam ke yuchi ke panyam pa me panyam gong ne gong lu go sho. Means my compassion grow and grow in the hearts of all. And maybe never give up. Have courage, face the problems, enjoy the good things, and don't take them for granted. Know that you created it, so enjoy it, use it, and then share it as well. And create more by being virtuous and patient and kind and loving. That's it. Thank you, everybody, so much. Thank you. All right, everybody. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So I'm late. I'm late, several minutes late today. Thank you, darling on Zoomers. See you all later next time. Thank you, sweethearts. Bye. Turn you off now.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Venerable.
Thank you, Venerable. Thank you, Sunny.
Thank you, Venerable. Thank you, Sonny. Thank you.